Awesome. Welcome back. Appreciate you being here, Dr. Degraff. It's a pleasure to actually have an opportunity to talk to you. I've seen you on video. I've seen you around, but I've never really had a chance to talk. And so thank you for being with me today. I have a couple questions for you.
Thanks for having me on, Eric.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thanks for having me on, Eric.
Oh, you're welcome. Can you briefly describe what it means to innovate or to be an innovator? What does that mean?
Well, it's funny. I got asked in the 90s by the federal government to come up with a definition for it. And my definition, I think, floored people. I said it's simply useful novelty. That's all innovation is. It can be incremental. It can be something radical, like we're going through with, with a vaccine.
Right.
And, if people want something a little more, one of my heroes, Marshall McLuhan, gave us 4 things we should look for in an innovation. 1, it enhances something. It makes it better and new. 2, it eliminates something. That smartphone got rid of a lot of cameras in this country. 3, it returns us to something that we feel we've lost. We don't want to live like the Jetsons. We want to live like hobbits. Think about that little blue pill. All of a sudden, we're all 25 again, right? And finally, it reverses into its opposite over time. Remember when email was going to set you free. So innovation is just useful novelty, but if you want a little more, it has these kind of 4 attributes to it.
Wow. So my wife, I heard her talking to her brothers the other day about, remember the store, the Sharper Image?
Yep.
Remember that store?
I do.
Yeah, that was kind of the innovation store, right?
Yeah.
You would go there and find out what's cool, what's on the shelf. And so
Now stores are antiquated. We're not seeing many stores. We're watching them fall down very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So does innovation mean the same thing to a Fortune 500 company as it does to the Air Force?
Yes and no. Innovation happens the same in any large organization. There's 2 places innovation usually happens. It happens at the senior level in organizations, particularly like in the big companies, because the way you get paid if you're a CEO is by running up the stock price. Capitalism requires capitalists. So they're going to be growth oriented. And the same is true at the front line of the organization where they're dealing with customers. The middle of the organization is designed to maintain the equilibrium, what's called the operating rhythm. Military is no different. Where the pressure is coming from the top and the bottom. What's different, is the company's trying to make another $1 billion. The military is trying to keep us safe. So the level of importance is not comparable. The military is doing something far more important than most companies are.
Absolutely. So sometimes it surprises me. I spent 20 years in the Air Force and I've been out for 15 cents. And I'm still surprised that we are the best Air Force in the world by far. We are the best military in the world by far. But sometimes we're so far behind. And I know we're trying to get there, and it's a challenge. So having gentlemen like yourself and other instructors on board to help us get there, boy, we really appreciate you, Dr. Degraff.
We really appreciate what you do, and we're trying. The wonderful thing that we're running into is America is the most heterogeneous culture. So our innovations are going to come from our diversity, our constructive conflict, the differences that we've got, which will overwhelm the enemy. But if all we're going to try and do is compete on alignment, we've got a peer adversary that's been doing this for 4,000 years.
Right.
So we've got to go back to what our strength is, which includes industry, the academy, and of course, the Air Force and the military.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's one of the reasons, well, I know there's many reasons, but why we were so successful in some past wars is that we weren't predictable. And we had a very innovative engine. We allowed the men and women in the ranks to be innovative and make things happen very quickly. That's why we have some tremendous Medal of Honor winners that did some very innovative things very quickly.
Very true.
Which I think is different than our peers. Our peers are very regimented. They're very, very much in line. This is the box that we work in.
Think of it like this. You're a venture capitalist with 100 corporations in your portfolio, and you're competing against something large. So if I may make a metaphor for you, if this makes sense, we've had a lot of problems with this virus. And the way we've tried to do it is we're trying to control it. We're not very good at a control society. The Chinese have done a better job in locking things down, kind of a totalitarian thing. But what people haven't noticed is something extraordinary has happened in what we call creativity clusters. All of a sudden, the University of Michigan and Pfizer, Oxford and AstraZeneca, Harvard and Moderna, Just and they have equity positions in small startups and fintech and the venture capital community, and they organically have come together, and they have got radical different solutions for this. So I have high confidence that we're not only going to solve this problem, we're going to take drug discovery and we're going to cut it by about 2/3. We're going to radically change drug discovery. Well, the Chinese and the Russians are probing our computers right now because they're looking for a solution to this, right? They've got a very monological approach to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to find our solution in an unlikely place. And here's what's going to be different. It usually is the old tries to assimilate the new, tries to assimilate the innovation. Not in America when we're really cooking on gas, because what happens is the new will assimilate the old. Sorry to say, a lot of your favorite stores are going to go away. Sorry to tell people at the Food and Drug Administration that how drugs are going to be developed is going to be very different. Sorry to tell professors that education is going to be different from here on out after we've been Zoom and Who for a year.
Right.
So that, I think, is our advantage.
Yeah. So there are so many changes, and for an older for an older person like myself, it's kind of sad to see some of these businesses that I grew up with have to go away, but I understand that they just were not able to adapt. And
and I think that's what what General Brown is seeing is we have to do three things really well. We have to accelerate our ability to innovate. Boy, don't we? We have to synchronize, which you've heard on all the presentations today. And the most important thing is we have to return to our culture of innovation.
Right.
That sense of destiny. I grew up in the 60s. I'm an older fellow. We're going to the moon. We're going to lick the commies and we're going to build the net. We did. Those horrible old boomers. But that sense of it's not just about staying number one. It's about wanting to get to the next thing. Right. And, boy, I'm so proud of these Air Force guys because I'm seeing an amazing sense of destiny. And I just really want to support that and see if we can inspire more of it.
Yeah. So working with the Air Force and working with Air University, are you working solely with the officer side, or are you also working with the enlisted side?
Both. And I'm working a lot of different units in the Air Force and including some out of the Air Force also. But the notion is, we're all trying to bring it together. I'm trying to make sure that most of these projects we work on, we don't have redundancies. We bring all the right people together, and including the enlisted people who do most of the work in this world, I want to point out, just like my graduate students do. There was a time when I was at that level and you were at that level. So I hope we remember that. But absolutely, this has got to start at the grassroots level. If we can't get the airmen involved in this, we're not going to be able to scale it.
Absolutely. And I think that you'll find a very willing participants in the enlisted force. These young men and women are tremendous.
And they're highly ingenious too.
Oh, absolutely.
They have to be. They're under-resourced, they're under-loved, they're underfed. We got to take care of these folks.
Right. Now, let's not forget our civilian employees too. They're tremendous assets to it. So the next question I have for you, I went to your website. So HTTPS, and then it's jeffdegraff.com. Great website. I could learn so much. It's like going back to school, but it's in 2-minute little bits, which is really the way we think, right? And 2-minute bites. And I took your innovation test. How do you innovate was the name of the test.
Yep.
And
who are you?
I came back as a sage. No one has ever called me a sage before.
No, I think you kind of are. Basically, my work is based on the work of two very important professors, Robert Quinn and Kim Cameron, and they're no strangers to the military.
Right.
My work looks at innovation, and it looks at innovation not only in the type of person you are, Eric, but in the type of practices a unit might use. And my work in businesses is predicting what kind of stock price you're likely to get out of this. So it's not just a Myers-Briggs test. It's looking at these worldviews and how these worldviews actually translate into outcomes. So a sage is somebody who's going to be extroverted, going to be a connector, going to be somebody who's interested in building on the relationships and the values of an organization. The opposite of the sage is going to be an athlete, somebody who's interested in winning short term, interested in goal orientation. You're going to have the engineer, interested in building things at scale. You know, they're going to get into details. Usually we're going to find these people who are held together by process. And of course, you're always going to find people like myself who are going to be artists. And we're very interested in doing things first, where we have the attention span of a gnat. We like to build new things. When I was really young, I was really lucky. I'm probably yucky too, but I was really lucky. I got to be an advisor to Steve Jobs when I was a young man. And I worked for Tom Monahan, right, and building Domino's Pizza, right. And so when you get around these people, what you discover is that they understand their strengths, but also like superheroes, they get what their weaknesses.
Right.
And they surround themselves with people who have different strengths, and they engage in the creative power of constructive conflict. That's why diversity, Eric, is so critical. When we look at, here you are in Montgomery, the 21 places on the planet, on this country, that produce almost all the intellectual property. I live in a small town called Ann Arbor that has more VC per person than any city in this country right now. It's 100 people. But the notion is, when you look at these communities, what's unique is they're really diverse. So you came from California, you would know that, right? So the issue is, as we bring those diverse groups together, right, all the different types, and people can take those assessments, that's when we start to get hybrids and new ideas.
Yeah, I'm excited about where you're going. So I want to wrap this up by giving you about a minute, right? Can't take more than a minute because I think the judge is getting ready to come back in. But take about a minute, please, Jeff, and address the audience and talk to them about what you think is important. And I'm kind of putting you on the spot, and I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all. I love what the chief of staff said before, which is every airman an innovator. I think we need, for our national defense, for the security of our families and our children, we all need to be innovators. And in order to do that, we're going to have to accelerate the speed at which we're doing this. The Joint Chiefs now, or the chief now, is exactly right. We have to be accelerator, or we're going to lose. And that means that every airman has got to be better and new. They've got to take this seriously. This can't be something that you do in your spare time. It has to be endemic. It has to be ingrained into everything that you do. And how do we learn to do that? See one, do one, teach one. If you want to be an innovator, find somebody who's already successful. Apprentice yourself to that person. Once you become that innovator, right? Apprentice somebody else, and eventually teach other people how to innovate. We're relying on every person being an airman. That's what I think the future of the Air Force, that's what the future I think all Americans have to have.
Wow. Fantastic. Now, I hope you're going to write a marriage book, because everything in business, this all applies to marriage too. And I just wanted to, say that I listened to you and I'm like, man, you can teach my wife and I a few things too. So, okay. So the judges are back. Dr. Degraff, thank you for this Werx on the Web, the special edition. I appreciate you very much.